listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Happy Monday, everyone. It's Labor Day in the United States, and I am being closely monitored and supervised.
Yes, he is. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
We're certainly glad you chose to spend a few minutes. I'm not going to take a lot of time because it is a holiday here, but there's a couple things I need to let you know. And if you like what you hear, be sure to hit those share buttons and all that good stuff. You know how that stuff works. If you're new here, you might want to check out GiveGod90.com. If you're interested in the books, it's author Jerry Mitchell. That's all one word, authorjerrymitchell.com. Excuse me. Something going on this week. Wednesday, we will be on True Word Faith for Life. I think I've just put in the comment section on the Spreaker app a link to it. It's Dr. Sean's YouTube channel. He's going to have us on there if all the technology works. Neither of us are real technical people. We can manipulate technology pretty good, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. but we're going to try. He's going to have us on to talk about what it was like when I hate to say it this way, we basically left the modern Christian church and began just simply living the way we're supposed to live. And we're going to look at that. I will put those links on my social media things Wednesday morning, so hopefully you'll be able to have access to that. The other thing is, sometime this week, my last interview with Logan Crawford should be released. I'll post that as soon as I get it, so it'll be out there. Of course, you can always search Jerry Mitchell, Logan Crawford on YouTube and see him. You know how that works, but I will try and get those links for you as soon as I get it. The other ones are on the websites, so you shouldn't have any problems seeing those. I heard something last week about a community that basically came together to oppose something that somebody thought they needed in their neighborhood. And these folks said, no, I think that's going to harm our neighborhood. So they came together, and they weren't sure if they were going to be successful in their opposition. But they went to the county meeting, and they viewed their concerns. Now, these people were not real close neighbors. Some of them could have been, but certainly not all of them. They were in a fairly rural area, I think. They were simply concerned people brought together by one common idea. They thought that what was being proposed wasn't a good thing, and they got together and they were successful. And it gave me an idea. And I wanted to look for examples in the Bible of what happens when believers come together. And when they come together, they're people, right? They have different ideas. They have different ways of doing things. But when they come together simply to do nothing more than follow the Creator, what can happen? And it turns out that history shows us a lot of things that happen. Biblical history is filled with lessons. And sometimes we want to overlook some of these lessons because we're not seeing the whole picture. So let's take a look at a couple of verses. And usually we see this from a narrower viewpoint, if you want to read those two.
Moses held his hand over the sea. All that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind. And so he made the sea become dry ground. The water was split. Exodus chapter 14, verse 21. And all the people answered together, We will do everything that the Lord has spoken. The Lord said to Moses, Behold, I will come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear when I speak with you, and they will always put their trust in you. Exodus chapter 19, verses 8 and 9.
So in that first passage, the mixed multitude coming out of Egypt had been following this angel of God, right, the messenger of God, until they reached the sea. Then the messenger went behind them and stood behind or between Pharaoh's army and the people. And most people concentrate on the parting of the Red Sea, right? That's the major miracle. Now, again, these people, they were not all of one mind. They had varying ideas, right? But that didn't matter at this point. They were following this sort of strange messenger of God that he had sent to guide them. And what happens is they cross the sea. Pharaoh's army is basically all drowned. And that's one of the great things that can happen when people come together to follow the Creator, right? Now, the second passage Meyer read, people said, we will do whatever God tells us to do. Well, we know that didn't last very long, right? But making that promise, getting ready, the Almighty coming down on that mountain, and the people not only hearing his voice, but seeing his voice, was every bit as great of a miracle as parting the sea. A lot of Christians, they look at Acts chapter 2 when the disciples were gathered together in one accord or of one mind. And it resulted in what we call Pentecost today. Some people call that the birthday of the church. Something these groups who gather together also have in common is they were choosing to follow the Creator, but they were still just people, right? And they had different skill sets. They had different ideas. They all didn't think exactly alike, right? They viewed things from their own personal perspectives. But they chose to follow, sometimes in their own way, but they chose to follow God. And yes, there is a great example in the Bible of what happens when people gather and oppose the Almighty as well, if you want to read that next passage.
Cush also had a descendant named Nimrod. Nimrod became a very powerful man on earth. He was a great hunter before the Lord. That is why people say someone is like Nimrod, a great hunter before the Lord. Genesis chapter 10, verse 8 and 9. Then they said to each other, Let's build for ourselves a city and a tower. Let's make the top of the tower reach high in the sky. We will become famous if we do this. We will not be scattered over all the earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower and the people had built. The Lord said, Now these people are united. They all speak the same language. This is only the beginning of what they will do. They will be able to do anything they want. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. Then they will not be able to understand each other. Genesis chapter 11, verses 4 through 7.
Nimrod, in other translations and in the original language, is seen in a much more negative context. He was someone who opposed the Creator. Some translations actually say he was a mighty hunter against the Lord. He was able to convince the people that they could reach heaven under their own power. He had gathered them in one place, not spreading them out over the whole earth as they were commanded to do. He brought them all together Said, look what we can do. So God chose to spread them out by causing them not to understand each other. And that continues today in some respect, right? Even people who speak the same language often miscommunicate. They don't define words exactly the same way as they did prior to Nimrod. The good news is that when people gather together, even today, if they gather together to follow the Creator, miracles can still happen. That's evidenced throughout history. If we read the account of the Maccabees, we see the same thing, right? When the cry went out through the streets, all those for the law and the covenant follow me. And the ones who came to join the Maccabean rebellion, they defeated the Greek army. They were able to cleanse the temple. And it was another great miracle when people come together to follow. In fact, we read success after success when people come together to follow the Creator's instructions, and we read failure after failure when they choose to go their own way. Look at your own life. And I imagine you're going to see the same thing, maybe not in the same way, right? You might not build an ark. You might not separate the water. But I think you're going to recognize smaller miracles when you follow the Almighty, and I think you'll see maybe some smaller setbacks when you don't. Excuse me. Now, sometimes a little adversity is possible, even when we do choose to follow the Creator, right? Look at what happens to the people when they enter the land. They had to overcome a lot of things, and there were some minor setbacks as well. And it wasn't really until Israel began rebelling as a nation that the Creator said, oh, time to go for a while. And the exile happened. Now, I know there are groups of people out there who promote that the rebellious one we call Satan is the God with the little g of this age. And, sometimes he does seem to be in control of things. He does. But our Creator is still very much in control. He even controls Satan and what he's able to do, how far he can go, how he's able to manipulate people or influence people's lives. If you don't believe me, read Job. He is restricted. He's on a leash. We might hear stories of great things that happen when believers get together for a common purpose. We might hear how other groups fail when they oppose God. We might see some groups who oppose God seem to prosper for a short time, but they fail. They always do. You see, when we gather together to follow the Creator, we need to remember one crucial thing. We need to follow Him. We are not allowed to ask Him to follow us. Do you get the difference? I hope. We have to do things His way because He's not going to do things our way. His way will always, always win. He's going to have His way. He's God. We're not. It's that simple. If we get together and ask for something He doesn't want, we're not going to get what we ask for. It's that simple. It's just not going to happen. But when we choose to follow and try not to lead, we see great things happen. When we try to lead, we run into roadblocks. We run into closed doors, sometimes locked doors. But when we follow, He's the one who clears the path. He takes all the roadblocks out of the way. He unlocks the doors He wants us to go through. Sometimes they can be hard to find. And And sometimes it might be a little confusing to know what his plan might be. But he certainly has one, right? Just because we might not see it, just because we might not understand it while we're going through it, doesn't mean that's a bad thing. Sometimes he chooses not to reveal everything until it's over because he wants to prevent the enemy, he wants to prevent Satan from seeing it as well. That's something we have to remember. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's wrong. It simply means we haven't seen the whole thing yet. And that's part of the problem with some of the prophecies we see in the Bible. People try to say, well, this happened, so it must mean this. Well, until the whole event is complete, you can't really look back. Prophecy is something you have to look at in the rearview mirror. After whatever it is has happened, after everything's been completed, then you can look back and you can see what fits and what doesn't fit, and you know how to plug it in. And the reason it's that way is because the Almighty is wise enough to know that if he revealed the whole thing all at one time before it happened, Satan would attempt to interfere. He'd always be begging, let me do more, let me do more, let me do more, just like he did with Job, right? But when believers come together and they simply follow, great things can, will, and do happen. It's that simple. And when people choose to go their own way, oftentimes they fail. When you don't have the Almighty's best interest in your own heart, and you're not looking for what he's looking for, you're just looking for what you're looking for, what's in it for me, chances are, it might seem like for a while that you're winning, but you're losing because it's his plan, his idea that will always, always, always win every time. Every time. So, that's kind of short today, I know. And that's probably not a bad thing if you're in the United States and you're out there trying to enjoy your holiday. So until Thursday. Hopefully nothing will get in the way. We wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Many blessings.